Hello everyone, I am Suvarna Gaikwad, working as Assistant Professor in Rare Shikshan Sanstha's Dada Patil Mahavidyalaya, Karjat. So, I welcome you all in the TY BSc paper 2nd, Cell and Molecular Biology. So friends, as we are dealing with the molecular biology aspects, so in today's session, we are going to cover the topic that is the gene regulation. Okay, so let's start. So in this particular session, we are going to see what is the relation between gene and enzyme. What is the hypothesis that is one gene and one enzyme hypothesis? What is the concept of operon and the inducible and repressible operon? So, let's see. First, we will see what is the relation between gene and enzyme. So, first clue to the nature of gene function came from the studies on human being. So there was a scientist called Garud. In 1902, he studied the disease alkaptonuria. Okay. So while studying that disease, he found that a defective enzyme causes an inborn error in metabolism along a reaction pathway. Friends, as we know that in the metabolism, there are series of metabolic pathways. Okay, and these metabolic pathways involves many steps, many reactions, many genes and many enzymes. But we know that each step is catalyzed by enzyme and each enzyme is regulated by a gene. So, if we take this example, so this is a reaction pathway. So there are many reactors, that is, this is A is the initial reactant which goes on intermediary metabolites like B and C, and finally it gives the final product. While giving these products, so each and every step is catalyzed by enzyme. For example, when there is a conversion from A to B, this step is catalyzed by enzyme 1. Okay. Then B to C, this step is catalyzed by enzyme 2 and so on. So, if there is a accumulation of these substance B, then there may be enzyme 2 must be defective. So, Garud was also concluded that there should be a defective enzyme which causes an error of metabolism which results into the disorder called alkaptonuria. Okay. So the disease causes a patient's urine to turn black when exposed to air. So this color change is due to the accumulation of an acid which is homogentisic acid. Okay, actually homogentisic acid, it is a intermediate molecule, okay, produced during this catabolism of this phenylalanine. Okay, phenylalanine, it is a amino acids. So from this he concluded that the disease is caused by a recessive inheritance factor. Having this factor would result in the production of defective enzyme. Okay, so this conclusion laid the foundation that there must be a link between gene and enzyme or a gene and protein. Okay, so let's coming to the concept of one gene and one enzyme hypothesis. As we know that the genes control all hereditary characters of an organism. Okay. Now, the message of this gene is finally carried out by enzymes. Okay. And all the biochemical pathways are controlled by enzymes. But just as every biochemical pathway is controlled by a gene, similarly, enzyme is also responsible for every step in metabolism. Okay, so for concluding this, the two scientists, that is Biddle and Tatum, in 1940 they worked on a bread mold called as Neurospora crassa. Okay, so the Neurospora crassa, in that the normal wild type of Neurospora, they can grow on a minimal medium. The minimal medium, it contains the sucrose, nitrates, minerals and only vitamin biotin. Now what did the Biddle and Tatum? So they exposed the spores of wild strain to the mutagen, that is the X-rays, to produce the mutation. After that, some of the spores will be unable to grow on minimal medium, and the mutant strains, they require addition of some other substances such as other amino acids, citrulline and vitamins like niacin. Okay, so these mutant strains are also called as auxotropes. But the Biddle and Tatum, they didn't know that what type of auxotropes are there, whether they are auxotropes of amino acids or auxotropes of vitamins, they didn't know. So for that, they carried out an experiment. So the experiment catalyzes different steps. In the first step, Biddle and Tatum, they take a wild type of strain, that is the normal strain of Neurospora. Then they expose that strain to X-rays to create mutations. Then these are the mutagenized conidia. After that, they crossed this mutant with the wild type of opposite mating type. Then the microscopic ascospores, they are dissected and transferred one by one to these culture tubes. Okay, so this is the first step. They just exposed to the mutagen and the ascospores, they dissected and transferred to different culture tubes. Now in the next step, these are the different types of culture tubes. These tubes of complete medium. Okay, these tubes contain complete medium and they inoculated with a single ascospores. Now the conidia from each culture are then tested on minimal medium. Okay, so there should be certain difference between complete medium and the minimal medium. So when they expose this conidia from each culture and tested on minimal medium, then no growth on minimal medium of ascospores. So it results into identification of nutritional mutant. Okay, so in the next step, the conidia from cultures that fail to grow on this minimal medium are then tested on different supplemented media, such as in the first tube there is a minimal medium, should be kept as control. In the next tube there is a minimal medium plus addition of amino acid. Next tube contains the minimal medium and addition of vitamins, and finally the complete medium keep as a control. So the result is that addition of arginine to minimal medium, it restores the growth. That is, these culture tube, they require, or these minimal medium require addition of arginine for the growth of these ascospores or conidia. So if we see the arginine synthetic pathway, okay, So there are different steps in the synthesis of arginine, if we are able to see. So this is the precursor, then the from precursor there is a ornithine, then citrulline, and finally arginine. So these are the three steps. Then this precursor to ornithine is catalyzed by enzyme A and it is regulated by gene A. Similarly, ornithine to citrulline is catalyzed by enzyme B and regulated by gene B, and the citrulline to arginine is catalyzed by enzyme C and regulated by gene C. So this is the wild type of culture tubes, okay, or the wild types of strains of Neurospora. Then the first tube contains the minimal medium. Second tubes contain minimal medium plus ornithine. Third will contain minimal medium plus citrulline, and the last contain minimal medium plus arginine. So this is a normal type. In the class first mutants, so these are the mutants. In the class first mutants, there is a mutation in gene A, so there will be no growth. In the class second mutants, there is a mutation in gene B, so there is a no growth. And in the class 3 mutant, there is a mutation in gene C, so there will be no growth. So in this way, there are different steps in synthesis of arginine, and the important concept is that a mutation in any one of these steps will result into block in the arginine biosynthesis. Means each and every step in this biosynthetic pathway catalyzed by enzyme, and each enzyme is regulated by one gene. So there should be certain connection between one gene and one enzyme. So from this, Biddle and Chatham concluded that one gene codes for one enzyme. And this relationship was updated to the one gene, one enzyme hypothesis, which provides first evidence for the function of gene. So friends, this is all about the discovery of one gene, one enzyme hypothesis. So let us talk about the another important concept, that is the gene regulation. So friends, gene expression, it is a highly regulated process, and it is regulated by the central dogma. As we know that in the central dogma of molecular biology, there are two processes. First is the transcription, that is from DNA to the formation of RNA, and translation, that is from RNA to the protein. Okay, so for the proper gene expression, these two processes should be carried out. So coming to the definition of this gene regulation. So gene regulation is any mechanism used by a cell to increase or decrease production of specific gene product. That means if a cell requires certain product, so there should be a mechanism to increase or decrease that product. Okay, so this gene expression in prokaryotes and eukaryotes is little bit different. In prokaryotes, gene expression is largely regulated at the point of transcription, whereas in eukaryotes it is additionally regulated post-transcriptionally. Okay, so that is the difference between them. Let's see what is the operon concept. So in 1961, the two scientists, Jacob and Monod, they proposed a mechanism called as operon model. This model is for regulation of gene action in E. coli. Okay, E. coli, it is a bacteria. So operon is a part of genetic material or part of DNA. So this is an example of operon. So, prokaryotic structural genes are organized into operons, and all these genes are controlled by transcription from a single promoter. Okay, so in this operon, we are able to see that these are A, B, C, D. These are the structural genes. Another, there is a operator, promoter, and the regulatory genes also. The regulatory region of this operon includes promoter and the region surrounding promoter to which transcription factors bind, okay, which influence the transcription. Okay, now this operon is of two types. First is the inducible operon and second is the repressible operon. Let's see what is the inducible system of operon. So, inducible system normally remains in a switch off condition. So, there are two conditions, switch on condition and switch off condition. So, inducible system normally remains in switched off condition and it works only when the substance to be metabolized by it is present in the cell. For example, lac operon of E. coli. That means when lactose is present in the cell, it is converted to allolactose. Now these allolactose act as an inducer which binds to the repressor and it prevents the repressor from binding to the operator and it allows the transcription of structural genes. In short, when lactose is present in the cell, then it binds to repressor and then it will result into the transcription of structural gene. Let's see. So this is the mechanism of lac operon. So there are two situations. First in the absence of lactose and second in the presence of lactose. So in the absence of lactose, this is the lac repressor. It binds to the operator and transcription will be blocked. While in the second case, in the presence of lactose, lac repressor is released from this operator and transcription will proceed at a slow rate. Okay, so this is the inducible system. Second type of system is the repressible system. A repressible operon system is normally in its switch on condition. Okay, it continues to synthesize a metabolite till it is produced in amount more than required. Okay, if a product represses the synthesis of particular enzyme, it is also called as co-repressor. And the example of repressible system is tryptophan operon of E. coli. So, when tryptophan accumulates, tryptophan binds to repressor and then binds to operator which prevents the transcription. Okay, that means when tryptophan binds to repressor, it blocks the transcription. Let us see with this diagram. So again there are two situations. First in the absence of tryptophan and second in presence of tryptophan. So when tryptophan is absent, then the tryptophan repressor, it dissociates from operator and there is a RNA synthesis. Okay, whereas when tryptophan is present, the repressor binds to operator and there will be no transcription. Okay, so friends, these are the two systems of operon. First is the inducible system and second is the repressible system. So these are certain references. So friends, in today's session we have seen one gene, one enzyme hypothesis and the concept of operon and the types of operon such as inducible and repressible. So friends, we will stop here and meet in the next session with a new aspect of molecular biology. So thank you very much.